I never thought I would find myself lost at night. It was supposed to be a quick hike through the woods, just a couple of hours to get some fresh air. But I should have known better than to venture out alone when the sun was already setting. Now, here I am, stumbling through the dark, with nothing but the beam of my flashlight to guide me. I try to stay calm, telling myself that I just need to retrace my steps and I'll find my way back to the trail. But the rustling of leaves and the distant howling of some creature make my heart race with fear. I begin to quicken my pace, my footsteps echoing loudly in the quiet night. As I trudge on, the trees seem to close in on me, their branches reaching out like gnarled claws. It's like they're trying to trap me, to keep me from finding my way back. I can feel their cold, slimy bark against my skin as I push my way through, my heart pounding in my chest. My flashlight flickers, and I let out a cry of panic. I quickly shake it, trying to make it work again, but it only weakly illuminates the path in front of me. In the dim light, I see something moving in the shadows, something that looks almost human. But as I shine my light on it, I realize with terror that it has no face. Its skin is pale and stretched over its skeletal frame, and its eyes are empty holes staring right at me. I back away, too afraid to move. But then, more shapes emerge from the darkness, all with the same featureless faces. They surround me, their cold breaths on my skin, and I know that these are not human. They are something else, something sinister and evil. I try to run, but they grab me with their long, bony fingers. Their touch is cold and clammy, and I can feel their strength, despite their skeletal appearance. I scream for help, but my voice is trapped in my throat as they drag me deeper into the woods. As we venture further into the darkness, I am overcome with a sense of dread. I can feel that we are heading towards something dark and ominous. The creatures seem to sense it too, and they start moving faster, their grip on me tightening. Soon, we reach a clearing, and in the center stands a dilapidated house, its walls covered in vines and its windows shattered. The creatures drag me towards it, and I realize that this is where they live, where they bring their victims. I try to struggle, to break free, but their grip is unrelenting. They take me inside, and the stench of death hits me like a punch in the gut. I almost gag as I see piles of bones scattered around the room. This is their lair, their hunting ground. And I am now their prey. As they close in on me, I realize that there is no escape. I am at the mercy of these creatures, and they do not seem to have any mercy at all. As they sink their teeth into my flesh, I let out a blood-curdling scream, knowing that this is the end for me. I am lost at night, lost in the clutches of creatures that shouldn't exist. But then, I wake up. My heart is still racing, and I am covered in sweat. It takes me a moment to realize that it was all just a nightmare, a terrible dream. I let out a sigh of relief and get up to splash some water on my face. But as I walk towards the bathroom, I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and I freeze. My face is pale and gaunt, my eyes sunken and lifeless. I reach up to touch my face, and I feel cold, slimy skin. And then, I see them, 2 empty holes where my eyes used to be. This is no longer a nightmare. This is my reality now. I am one of them, lost at night, trapped in a never-ending hunt for prey. And soon, another unsuspecting victim will stumble into our lair, just like I did. They say curiosity killed the cat. But in my case, it turned me into a creature of the night, lost and alone, living in eternal fear. So, take this as a warning. Beware of the darkness, for you never know what horrors may lie in wait for you. I was never one for hiking, but my friends convinced me to join them on a trip to explore a nearby forest. They promised it would be an adventure, and I couldn't resist their excitement. Little did I know, it would turn into a nightmare. We set off early in the morning, armed with backpacks filled with snacks and water. The beginning of the hike was easy, with well-marked trails and beautiful scenery. But as we ventured deeper into the forest, the trees grew thicker and the path became harder to follow. Before I knew it, I was completely lost. I couldn't see or hear my friends anywhere. Panic started to set in as I realized I was alone in this vast, unfamiliar forest. I tried to retrace my steps, but everything looked the same. I was hopelessly lost. As I wandered, the trees seemed to close in around me, creating a sense of foreboding. I could hear strange noises all around me, rustling in the bushes and whispers in the wind. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. But deep down, I knew I was being watched. The sun began to set, casting an eerie red glow over the forest. I knew I needed to find my way out before it got dark, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. Every time I turned around, there was no one there, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. As darkness fell, I stumbled upon an old abandoned cabin. It looked like something out of a horror movie, with its crooked windows and creaky door. I debated whether to go inside or keep wandering, but the thought of spending the night alone in the forest was too terrifying. I cautiously pushed the door open and stepped inside. The musty smell of the cabin filled my nostrils, and I could see dust dancing in the beams of moonlight that filtered through the cracks in the walls. I lit a candle that I found on a dusty shelf and looked around. The cabin was empty, except for a few pieces of furniture covered in cobwebs. As I made my way to the back of the cabin, I noticed a strange symbol carved into the wall. It looked like some kind of ritualistic symbol, and it sent shivers down my spine. I quickly made my way out of the cabin and continued my search for a way out of the forest. But every path I took seemed to lead me right back to the cabin. It was as if the forest was playing tricks on me, keeping me trapped in this never-ending maze. As I grew more and more desperate, the sounds in the forest intensified. I could hear growls and howls, and I was sure there were eyes watching me from the darkness. I ran as fast as I could, trying to outrun whatever was lurking in the shadows. But no matter how fast I ran, I couldn't escape the horrors of the forest. I stumbled upon a clearing where I saw a group of people gathered around a fire. They were chanting in a language I couldn't understand, and I could see they were wearing masks made of animal skins. I turned to run, but I tripped over a branch and fell to the ground. The group of people stopped chanting and turned to face me. I could see the fear in their eyes as they looked at me, and I realized they were just as terrified of me as I was of them. They helped me up and led me to their village, where they explained that they were a group of people who had been living in the forest for generations. They warned me of the dangers of the forest and how it could play tricks on your mind. They also told me that every year, they would perform a ritual to appease the spirits of the forest. That was the symbol I saw in the cabin, and it was meant to protect them from the evil that lurked in the forest. They were grateful that I stumbled upon their village, as they believed I was sent by the spirits to help them. The next morning, they guided me out of the forest and back to civilization. I was relieved to be back in the safety of my own home, but the experience of being lost in the forest would haunt me for years to come. I learned a valuable lesson that day: never underestimate the power of nature, and always be prepared for the unexpected. The forest may seem like a peaceful and beautiful place, but it can quickly turn into a nightmare for those who are not careful. I will never forget my hiking horror story, and I hope others can learn from my experience. I never thought I would find myself alone in the woods at night. I had always been afraid of the dark, and being lost only made it worse. It all started when I decided to go on a hike with my friends. We were supposed to stick together, but I wanted to take some pictures of the beautiful scenery. I wandered off on my own, confident that I could find my way back to the group. But then I saw a bird, a dark and menacing bird with glowing red eyes. It seemed to be leading me deeper into the woods. I should have been scared, but something about the bird drew me in. I followed it without thinking, my curiosity getting the best of me. Before I knew it, I was completely lost. The sun had set, and the only light came from the moon and the stars. I tried to retrace my steps, but everything looked the same. The trees seemed to be closing in on me, and the sound of my own footsteps echoed through the silence. I couldn't hear my friends' voices or the rustling of leaves anymore. My heart was beating out of my chest as I walked aimlessly through the woods. I started to panic, my mind racing with all the horror stories I had ever heard about people getting lost in the woods. I imagined a monster lurking in the darkness, waiting to pounce on me. Every rustle of leaves made me jump, and every shadow seemed to move. My phone battery was dead, and I didn't have a map or a flashlight. I was completely alone and helpless. I thought about shouting for help, but the thought of attracting attention from whatever was lurking in the darkness stopped me. I stumbled upon an old abandoned cabin, and for a moment I felt relief wash over me. But as I got closer, I could see that the windows were shattered and the door was hanging off its hinges. It was not a place I wanted to be, but I had no other choice. I needed shelter for the night. Inside, the air was musty and the floorboards creaked with every step. I found a small room with a dilapidated bed and a desk. I laid down on the bed, telling myself that everything would be okay, that my friends would find me in the morning. But then I heard it, whispers, soft and eerie. I sat up, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't see anyone or anything in the room with me, but the whispers continued. They seemed to be getting closer, and I could sense a presence in the room. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran out of the cabin, not caring if I got lost even further. I stumbled through the darkness, branches scratching at my skin and my breaths coming out in short gasps. Just when I thought I couldn't run anymore, I saw a faint light in the distance. It was my friends, and they were looking for me. I sobbed with relief, grateful to be out of the darkness. I never went back to those woods again. But even now, I sometimes hear the whispers in my dreams, a constant reminder of the horror I endured that night.